It's women out there that do their homework. They know everything about y'all because you tell on yourself on the gram and on social. So they know how to go get you.
This whole drama with Shannon Sharpe is turning into a wild storm, and now Deion Sanders just jumped in with a raised eyebrow, saying something don't smell right.
You see what happened? That had been going on for years. They let it build up. Shannon Sharpe, y'all know he was about to sign $1 million contract. So now they got to get out of it.
Okay, you are seriously not going to believe the mess Shannon Sharpe is apparently in right now.
Oh, I know. And the timing.
Right. The timing is absolutely everything here. You really need to hear this because this is the kind of drama that just makes your jaw drop.
We're talking huge money, right? Millions.
Millions of dollars, yeah. A media empire kind of poised to just blow up in the best way possible, and then bam!
This massive lawsuit just lands.
Exactly. A $50 million lawsuit landing right when things were looking incredible for him.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just smells. Well, it smells off, doesn't it?
Totally. Like something feels really calculated about the whole situation.
It feels less like just awful luck and more like, maybe something strategic actually went down here.
So let's spill the tea. Shannon Sharpe is facing this enormous $50 million lawsuit.
$50 million. Wow.
Yeah, it's from an OnlyFans model, Gabrielle Zuniga. And the allegations themselves are really serious. We're talking assault, battery, defamation.
Goofy stuff.
Really heavy stuff. But like you said, it's not just that there's a lawsuit, it's when it actually hit.
Spot on. Because right before this bombshell dropped, the buzz, the real buzz in the media world, was that Shannon was about to sign this absolutely massive deal.
Massive is the word. We're talking potentially $100 million.
$100 million?
That changes everything, right?
Yeah.
That kind of money. And it wasn't just for like one podcast. This was framed as an empire move.
Right, pulling in the whole network, Club Shay, Nightcap, Club 520, The Bubba Dub Show, all of it.
This was his big moment, solidifying himself as a true media titan after leaving traditional sports TV.
And the reports about this potential mega deal, they surfaced around, April 18th?
April 18th, yeah. And then...
Just 3 days later, April 21st.
All right.
The lawsuit gets filed.
And the immediate consequence, that huge $100 million deal.
Poof.
Suddenly, it's off the table, put on ice, dead in the water, for now at least.
The timing. $100 million opportunity gets reported, and then 3 days later, a $50 million lawsuit drops. That puts the whole deal on hold.
You just have to wonder, don't you? Is that just unbelievably bad coincidental timing? Or is it something, way more deliberate?
It feels incredibly pointed. And Shannon himself, he's not staying quiet about what he thinks is going on.
Not at all. He's basically come out swinging, saying this is absolutely a setup.
Straight up cash grab designed to take him down.
Yeah, and he's even talked about this, like really heartbreaking feeling that maybe people who thought were close to him, people in his corner,
might be secretly rooting against him, or even celebrating his troubles.
Exactly. That kind of perceived betrayal, wow, it just adds another really tough layer to all this drama.
And it's that whole setup theory that's getting some big names talking, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Probably the most vocal supporter of that idea is his good friend Deion Sanders, Coach Prime.
Deion has definitely not held back on this one. He looked at the timing, the whole situation, and basically said it looks way too clean.
Too perfectly timed.
Yeah, he used phrases like someone set the trap. He's implying there was a deliberate plan here, specifically targeting Shannon and his success.
And, when Deion Sanders speaks his mind like that, people tend to listen. His take is, Shannon didn't just accidentally stumble into this chaos. Someone orchestrated it.
He said he feels sad for Shannon, obviously, but also sad for us as a show, meaning their kind of collective media impact.
Right.
And he mentioned that people have been at his neck, jealous or critical, because of the massive success Shannon's had, especially after that interview.
Yes. Let's definitely get into that. Because a lot of people are pointing to one specific event from earlier this year as maybe lighting the fuse for this whole explosion. The Cat Williams interview.
That interview back in January 2024, wasn't just big for Club Shay, it was explosive.
It didn't just break records, it completely shattered them. It almost overnight became the most viewed episode they'd ever had. Changed the whole podcast game for a minute there.
And Cat Williams, he wasn't exactly holding back, was he?
Not even a little bit. The reports say he dragged half of Hollywood and was just calling out names left, right, and center.
And the story that's kind of being whispered around now is that some really powerful people, some big dogs in Hollywood,
Yeah.
they weren't just mad about what Cat Williams said. They were apparently furious that Shannon gave him the platform to say it in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense. If you think about it, if your whole reputation, your business, it's all tied up in that world, and someone goes on a huge platform like Shannon's and just airs all the dirty laundry naming names.
Yeah, that's going to make enemies.
Yeah.
Fast. And the word is Shannon made enemies way up top because he let that happen.
So the theory connecting the Cat Williams interview to this lawsuit basically suggests this isn't random. Some people seem to believe this $50 million lawsuit is actually a hit job in disguise.
Deployed months later, sure, but timed perfectly to mess up the biggest moment of Shannon's career, right when that $100 million deal was supposedly about to happen.
Wow. So that paints a picture of like powerful people retaliating because they saw Shannon's platform as a threat, or maybe just wanted to punish him for enabling Cat Williams.
And it's not just Deion saying things like this. Even Stephen A. Smith.
Who was pretty critical of Shannon leaving ESPN.
Exactly. He's apparently done a major pivot on this. The word is he's now saying people have been trying to take Shannon down ever since that Cat Williams interview really shook the room.
Okay, that's actually a pretty big shift from Stephen A. That does lend some weight to the idea that maybe this is seen as a targeted attack by some insiders.
And you've even got other figures chiming in, like Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal. He apparently flat out called the timing no accident.
So there's definitely a chorus building in certain circles that sees this as a deliberate hit on Shannon.
And maybe adding a little fuel to that fire is the report that Shannon was supposedly willing to negotiate a settlement with Gabriella Zuniga for $10 million.
$10 million. Okay.
And the thinking, according to what's being said, is that offering that much money and trying to do it quickly, well, that might make sense if you really believed it was a setup.
Like, just make it go away fast, even if it costs a lot, to protect the bigger prize, that $100 million, and avoid a long, messy legal fight.
Exactly. Trying to maybe neutralize a targeted attack quickly rather than digging in for a huge fight over a claim he felt was manufactured.
Okay, so that's definitely one compelling side of the story. You've got powerful enemies, the Cat Williams connection, the incredibly suspicious timing, big names like David Gayon and even Stephen A. basically saying set up. It paints quite a picture, especially with that $100 million deal just hanging there.
BUT. Yeah, it's a big butt.
There's absolutely the other side. And a lot of people, especially you see this online with fans, they are just not buying the whole setup narrative.
Not even close. The counter-argument, and you hear it loud and clear online, is pretty blunt. Shannon brought this entirely on himself.
The logic is pretty simple from that angle, right? Nobody told him to mess with that woman.
Exactly. Even if you want to entertain the idea that maybe she was plotting something or looking for an opportunity, that she was trying to set a trap.
The argument is Shannon's the one who gave her the keys or handed her the tool by his own choices, his own actions that put him in that risky situation to begin with.
It's that perspective that says, okay, maybe someone tried to exploit this situation, but you created this situation that could be exploited.
And the specific allegations from the lawsuit, the details that are out there from the source material, this side points to those as clear evidence of Shannon's own doing.
Absolutely. For a lot of people, one particular alleged detail seems to be the final straw, making it hard to just accept the pure setup story.
Which one is that?
It's the alleged phone call. The one where Shannon supposedly said he would choke the ish out of her man.
Oof.
People hear that, and the reaction is kind of like, okay, hold on. Nobody made him say that. If that part is true, that statement came directly from him.
Right. It's really hard to frame that specific alleged comment as something a setup forced him to say.
And then you have the alleged wild messages. The sources are describing these texts as being like, put a big black baby in me kind of messages.
Wow. Okay.
And online, you see fans pointing directly at those alleged texts saying, look, this shows Shannon was way too deep in that mess.
Their argument being, these aren't the actions of someone who was just purely set up, right? This suggests he was actively, maybe riskily, involved in something potentially problematic.
Exactly. And the fan commentary reflecting this viewpoint, I mean, based on the sources, it's pretty brutal out there.
Like what?
Well, some fans are straight up calling the setup theory a distraction tactic, just trying to shift blame away from his own alleged behavior.
Others are saying, look, Shannon needs to take some responsibility for the choices he made here and stop leaning on conspiracy talk.
Yeah, the general feeling from that side is At his age, with his level of fame, you just have to be smarter. You have to be more careful about the situations you put yourself in.
And some people online are even dragging Deion into it, which seems kind of wild.
Yeah, because Deion's been so vocal supporting the setup idea. Some fans are bringing up his own rocky history when it comes to women, apparently.
Ouch.
There was even a specific fan tweet mentioned. It reads, quote, "Deion Sanders and Shannon Sharpe equal to women be."
That's harsh. But it definitely shows how, public perception and someone's past can get tangled up in how people judge these situations now. It adds another layer, doesn't it? Makes you question who seems credible.
For sure. And fans are asking these direct questions too, like, why didn't his real friends, they mentioned Deion or his brother Sterling, step in earlier? Why did they warn him, like, leave that young girl alone?
Yeah. As one fan apparently tweeted, Shannon needs to sit down somewhere. He's too old for this.
And comments like that really hammer home the point from this perspective.
Yeah.
Forget about what the other person might have been doing or planning. Shannon, nearly 60, decades in the spotlight, he should have known better.
Which leads us right to that ultimate argument this side makes. He fumbled the bag.
Yeah. Even if you grant the possibility of some kind of setup attempt, the argument here is Shannon walked straight into it with his eyes wide open.
This isn't some rookie. This is a man who's navigated the intense glare of the public eye for decades. He's nearly 60 years old. It's definitely not his first rodeo when it comes to fame, attention, and all the potential dangers.
He knows exactly how fast things can turn, how scandals can blow up, how easily everything you've built can be put at risk.
So the argument goes, when you're at his level, you absolutely gotta protect your image like a vault. You just can't afford to roll the dice on risky moves that could potentially open the door to exactly this kind of disaster.
So from this viewpoint, he didn't just fumble the bag because the lawsuit hit him. He basically opened the door and handed it over by allegedly engaging in the actions that are now being used against him.
Opened the door and handed it over. Wow, that's a really powerful way to put it. And frankly, kind of damning. It puts the responsibility squarely back on him, doesn't it? Even if the other person had bad intentions.
It really does. So when you look at everything being reported, everything being discussed, you're left grappling with these two incredibly strong, almost opposite stories.
On one side, yeah, you've got this possibility of a really sophisticated, maybe powerful plot. Could involve Hollywood figures upset about Cat Williams, a plot using an accuser, timed with unbelievable precision to just wreck this $100 million deal and halt Shannon's rise.
And then on the other hand, you have the argument that this is just the direct result, maybe harsh, but direct result of Shannon's own risky decisions and alleged actions.
Like that alleged phone call, those alleged messages, actions that just left him incredibly vulnerable, whether or not someone then decided to exploit that vulnerability.
And that's the really tricky part, isn't it? Because let's say there was a setup. Does that just completely erase the significance of the things he's alleged to have actually done?
Does his responsibility for those alleged actions just disappear if he was targeted?
It really forces you to think about where that line is. The line between being a victim of a scheme and being accountable for your own behavior that maybe, just maybe, allowed that scheme to work.
And no matter which theory you find more convincing, the human side of this is pretty stark. You see Shannon, after building this incredible career, now facing his whole world potentially flipping upside down.
Yeah, the foundation he built seems like it's shaking. It is genuinely sad to see that potential next huge step in his success actually possibly get derailed like this.
It's definitely a harsh reminder of how fast things can change, especially when you're in the public eye and serious allegations like these come out.
And it is worth pointing out, amidst all the criticism and those fan comments about Deion's own past, Deion is absolutely sticking by Shannon.
That loyalty seems strong.
Yeah, he's gone to bat for him many times before, like defending his coaching. That friendship is clearly still there, even in the middle of this massive storm.
That kind of loyalty definitely stands out in all this mess and speculation.
It really does. So where does all this leave us right now? Well, this whole saga is clearly far from finished, but the internet, public conversation, it's just buzzing with these competing theories.
Was this a master plan against Shannon's booming empire, maybe fueled by powerful enemies he made after the Cat Williams interview? Or despite all his years of experience navigating fame, was he ultimately the architect of his own downfall by making choices that left him wide open?
Here's something maybe for you to think about as this whole thing continues to unfold. If someone did meticulously set a trap for you, right, a really sophisticated plan to take you down, but you then walk straight into that trap because of your own choices and actions leading you there.
Are you still primarily a victim of the setup? Or are you ultimately responsible for walking into that trap in the first place?
It's a really messy, wild story, just full of layers and so much debate.
And like we said, this thing is definitely not over yet. There's always more to dig into. Stay tuned.